Good afternoon. We are again interrupting your regular program for breaking news here in Charlotte. There has been a shooting, a mass shooting, as it turns out right now in East Charlotte, where there are multiple injuries being reported. Let me show you a map, first of all, where this is happening right now. As the map zooms in, you will see this is happening on Galway Drive. Again, East Charlotte, not far from the plaza, not far from Julian Underwood Park, if you are familiar with this area right now. CMPD, just a short time ago, has tweeted out some information that numerous law enforcement officers have been struck by gunfire in this very active situation. Again, in the 5000 block of Galway Drive. You can see the tweets that have come up on your screen right now. They are describing this scene as very active. They are telling you to avoid that area. And many roads right now, in fact, are closed right now because they are trying to transport or getting ready to transport those who are victims to these gunfire to the hospital. This is a live picture we can show you right now. This is 277. That is the outer loop. So with I-77 comes northbound, and you often exit there at 9, and then you would head through the uptown, right through here. That is being closed off right now to perhaps provide quicker access to not only Novant, to Atrium, the hospitals in that area. So that is why you are seeing major traffic impacts, not only in this East Charlotte area where this shooting has happened, but also the surrounding area right now. This is our, I believe, our HD tower cam right now. And you can see, again, the traffic is being heavily impacted right now. And again, we are hearing that numerous law enforcement officers have been struck by the gunfire in what is considered an active situation. Again, bringing up those tweets for you right now as we try to get more information for you. Numerous law enforcement officers struck by gunfire. You're reading it there on the screen with me. That scene is active. Again, avoid the area. For those who live in this neighborhood, you are being told to shelter in place right now. As a short time ago, there were still reports of gunfire still going off, being heard in this neighborhood. But obviously a developing situation, a frightening situation developing in East Charlotte, is now spreading to the rest of the community as well as far as traffic goes. Again, live pictures you are seeing here. This is from our HD tower cam. We have zoomed it in. Normally we show you that beautiful picture of the uptown skyline, but you can see right here that that has now been shut off. So you don't try to get into uptown right now from Interstate 77. You will not be able to get in there. CMPD saying they are shutting off these routes so that they can transport potential victims quickly to the hospitals there at Atrium, Maine, perhaps Novant Presbyterian as well. If you're familiar with that area, those are the off-ramps that you would get to those hospitals quickly. So again, traffic being rerouted in this area. We don't know exactly what led up to this situation right now as to why numerous law enforcement officers were in this area and were struck by gunfire. You know, sometimes these things happen where you might have warrants that are being executed. There can be sometimes violent criminal apprehension teams that are going in. We just don't have that information right now. But obviously officers were called to this area for some specific reason and were met with gunfire this afternoon. And a number of them have been wounded. The severity of those injuries we do not know at this point. Nothing has been confirmed right now. So be careful what you're seeing online and other places as well. We want to get that information to you correctly and as quickly as we can. But obviously a developing situation still here in the city of Charlotte. It's been a while since we have dealt with an officer being shot in the line of duty here in our area. If memory serves, I want to say it was 2021. A teenager was accused of wounding an officer. That officer thankfully recovered. So we haven't thankfully dealt with this very often, but apparently we are in the city of Charlotte here today. Again, live pictures that you are looking at right now. If you're just coming into the room or you're just turning on the television, this is far away from where this scene has unfolded. This is Interstate 277. Our tower cam has zoomed in right now as traffic has been blocked in this area to allow for quick transport of any potential gunshot victims to the hospital right now. This shooting scene happening several miles away in East Charlotte on Galway Drive. That's not far from Julian Underwood Park, the plaza, East Charlotte area right now. That is where all this is unfolded here today. And again, CMPD is calling it an active scene still at this moment right now. We are waiting for them to provide us with some more information, but obviously that is difficult at this time when they are still dealing, as I said, with this active situation. We have our crews responding to that scene as well. As soon as we can get them up and live with some pictures and some information, we will certainly pass that along to you as well. Our Caroline Hicks was not far from Atrium Atrium, Maine, a short time ago, and she sent us an email saying that the roads right around the hospital there at Atrium, Maine had been shut off as well. CMPD was blocking those roads, and again, that fits into the picture you're seeing there a moment ago from Interstate 277, again, to try to provide some quick access so they can quickly get ambulances to the hospital. Obviously, it underscores the severity of the situation that we are dealing with right now. Again, numerous law enforcement officers struck by gunfire in what is still an active situation in East Charlotte. Other than that, the information is a little scant right now. As you can understand, this is still a breaking situation. You can see staging areas being set up. That's more for us probably to be worried about right now, as we will then try to get more information there at that location there at the plaza, at the Family Dollar store. But again, if you live in this area, steer clear. Don't go anywhere near this site. This is not a time to go look and see what's going on. Why am I seeing sirens? Why am I seeing police officers in my neighborhood? If you are in that neighborhood, again, you are being told to shelter in place. Keep the windows closed, the doors closed, and maybe move inside of your home to a safe place right now. As at last report, we are still hearing some reports of gunfire in that area. Looks like some traffic perhaps is squeaking through here on Interstate 277. Again, that's the outer band of 277 that would then take you to the east side of Charlotte. And again, that would be a way to perhaps get to the hospital quickly if that's needed at this point. But again, traffic is backed up right now. And I'm looking at our traffic map off camera right here. And I'll tell you what, the backups that we are seeing south of the Uptown. So a lot of this traffic, if you're coming up from the southern Mecklenburg County, South Charlotte, and you try to make your way into Uptown, that's where you would get off exit 9 and then head into 277. It looks like it is starting to back up several miles right now, and it won't be long until it's backed up darn near all the way to 485. So that gives you an idea of just what we're dealing with here today, the traffic impacts, the community-wide impacts in our area right now. But obviously, folks, if you're out or if you know somebody out, have some grace at this moment for the traffic situation, because we are dealing with what sounds like numerous officers who have been wounded today in a shooting in East Charlotte. Why those officers, again, were gathering in this neighborhood, we don't know at this point. We are still waiting to get more information from CMPD. Obviously tough to provide that information. It is ever changing right now as that active scene continues here today. But again, we are waiting to hear more about that on Galway Drive, East Charlotte, not far from the plaza. And I keep kind of giving some landmarks. Julian Underwood Park would be sort of in that area right now. The plaza, again, East Charlotte right now. Some traffic is getting by here on 277, not much, but it's obviously, again, an area to avoid. So if you have any reason to be heading up from South Charlotte into the Uptown, I would put that off for now. Let's get through this situation. If there are some wounded officers, we want to get them to the hospital just as quickly as possible. The severity of those injuries still not known at this point. We are again waiting for more information from CMPD as I continue just to check my feed from them to see if they can provide us anything new, and I don't see anything new. Again, this is still going on right now, so we are waiting to hear more about it. Our reporters are there on scene as well. They are arriving to try to gather more information, but obviously this is having a massive impact on our community. So now it does look like the traffic is starting to move again. So what that tells us, I hate to just guess at this point, but perhaps they've gotten people to the hospital who needed to get to the hospital at this point. Now they can start reopening some of these lanes of traffic. But you can see CMPD officers are still there on scene, so perhaps in a moment's notice they could close that off again if needed. But maybe at this point right now they feel like they can get some of this traffic through and cleared out. But it is creating certainly a big-time traffic backup in our area right now. But this is a scary and unsettling time that we're dealing with right now, because we are waiting for information, and I can only imagine family members of officers in this community, friends of officers in this community right now are thinking to themselves, what happened here today, and are my loved ones okay? And that's the thing we don't know at this point as we are trying to get more information. Our John Carter has joined me here on set, and John, it's been a while since we've dealt with something like this here in Charlotte, but this is very sobering information we're getting and some sobering pictures.
Absolutely very sobering, Jamie. We still don't know the exact circumstances, exactly what happened when this shooting first broke out. This Galway Drive, it's a residential neighborhood there. U.S. Marshal perhaps involved in this situation here, as well as CMPD officers. So we don't have all those specifics yet from Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police. But that situation out there, of course, it's still very active. As you've been saying, people should not go to that area there. I've already had a lot of texts, a lot of messages from folks saying, what's going on out there? Should I go out there? I'm going to go out out there kind of thing. So it's one of those situations we don't want to be out there. An active situation still underway.
That's what we've heard. We've heard there was still gunfire being reported as of 15 minutes or so ago. We haven't had an update since then. Whether that is still continuing, we don't know. The SWAT team apparently has been called in to try to negotiate an end to whatever is happening there. You know, again, why do these things happen? Why were police called to that? We're going to have to sort through all of that. You mentioned Marshals perhaps being involved. That tells you maybe there was a warrant being served. Could have been a warrant. Could have been a violent criminal apprehension team involved. We don't know all those things yet. But obviously these officers were met with something they were not expecting, and that was a hail of gunfire that has apparently wounded several officers here today. And that's why we're seeing the traffic impacts as well as they try to close off some of those roads. So if those ambulances need to make a beeline to the hospital, we want to get them there just as quickly as possible.
Exactly. And they're saying multiple officers have been wounded. We don't know exactly the number. It could be 2, 3, 4, but it's just hard to say right now. The information is not coming in a lot right now. So we're still working to get you more information. I know Caroline Hicks has been out there in that area working to get some more information.
I think she was near the hospital last I heard from her, and she was seeing some of the traffic impacts in that area as some of the areas around the hospital, access to the hospital was being slowed or shut off. And do we have Caroline on the phone now, guys? Is she available to us?
I think we do.
Caroline, are you there?
Hello, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, tell us what you're seeing, Caroline. Where are you?
Hi, yes. So I was just driving in the area of Atrium, Maine, down Kenilworth, and noticed that they were stopping traffic. They actually set up a bunch of cones completely blocking the lanes on Kenilworth, as well as some of the lanes on Moorhead. So obviously that's a very high traffic area anyway. So it was causing a lot of traffic backups, and police were kind of directing cars as they could. But kind of those cut-through roads that kind of go past Levine Cancer, kind of towards the hospital, those were all shut down. And I saw a lot of police officers driving by, lights flashing. So clearly they were appearing to have some areas around that hospital blocked off in really all directions. And then a lot of those main roads, again, so Kenilworth, Moorhead, Romney, all of those shut down. So causing backups all the way really towards East Boulevard. And, you know, a lot of police officers out there, as well as some ambulances, lights flashing, as I mentioned. So kind of unclear what exactly going on, but certainly seems like they were trying to block off some of the roads in and around the hospital.
As you're talking there, we are watching a live picture from our HD tower cam, Caroline, of I-270-7, the John Belk, the outer, and it looked like some police officers were just now scooting through there. Not sure where they were going. Looked like lights and sirens were going at the time, not at a high rate of speed, but they were making their way through. But as you point out, with the hospital, there is obviously appointments there constantly. There are people visiting there constantly. So if you have an appointment there this afternoon, even at Levine Cancer Institute, we know that is a very busy place. People coming in and out all of the time. That is going to be impacted. They're trying to get into the hospital right now, so keep that in mind. You may need to get a hold of your provider and see what's going to happen with your scheduled appointments, but probably an area just to steer clear of right now, again, because the whole idea here was that they were trying to clear traffic so that if they had to rush officers to the hospital, those ambulances could get there very quickly.
And I know in other situations, they've gone to multiple different hospitals. We've got Novant Health, which is in that similar area to Atrium, but also they could be taking people to Atrium Health, the University Hospital up there, because it's actually proximity-wise to this Galway drive here. It's very close in regard to the amount of difference between it and also going to Atrium Health Maine. So we don't know. I haven't heard. Have you, Jamie, heard anything about the University Atrium Health yet?
We have not. Just I think we had heard like multiple hospitals, I think, were kind of put on alert to get ready for potential patients to be coming there. So we just don't have, you know, a number right now as to how many. The only thing CMPD has said, numerous, which is obviously a frightening thing to think about. We just don't know how many law enforcement officers have been struck by gunfire, their conditions at this point. If you're just coming home here, which would come up on 2:40 in the afternoon, just to reset. What you're looking at here is a live picture of Interstate 277. That is the outer loop where you can see some of the officers there on both sides of the road right now. They're letting some traffic through. It was closed down completely a short time ago. This is miles away from really where the scene has happened here today. As John pointed out, that's in East Charlotte, the 5000 block of Galway Drive, a very active scene last described by CMPD. Many roads in that area are closed. But again, gunfire met officers there this afternoon. Several have apparently been wounded. SWAT teams have now been called in trying to negotiate with whoever that person is.
All right, and as I'm looking at this traffic scene too, Jamie, this that area of I-277, Wilkes Boulevard, the John Bell Freeway, that crosses I-77.
Right.
And looking at our traffic maps right now, traffic on I-77 North is backed up for several miles, quite possibly because they were blocking off or they're holding up traffic that's getting on to I-277 there off of I-77 northbound. So that is backed up for several miles. I'm going to step over here close to the map and get a better idea, Jamie, of what we're looking at. You can see it goes all the way back down to the Tryon Street to Woodlawn Road, and perhaps even as far as Tyvola Road. The
map's up there, John. Now you can see it on the big screen.
There we see. You can see exactly how far that is backed up. And then on Independence Boulevard, the inbound lanes of Independence Boulevard, it looks like there's some backups and some slow-ups in that area as well. We've looked at traffic maps around the Galway Drive situation there. We don't seem to be seeing too many particular backups there as far as indicated on this map that we've been looking at. But again, I think most of the traffic that's affected right now appears to be on I-77 northbound. There appears to also be an accident there near the Highway 16 exit off of I-77 northbound. It's showing that there's an accident up there. You can see that little red dot, and it looks like a car there. So there could be an accident there as well that is impacting the traffic, in addition to the fact that they had apparently closed off the John Belk I-277 route there. So the traffic situation right now is certainly going to be difficult if you're headed out anytime soon.
And John, as I look closer to you, look to the east side of the city as well. Inbound Independence is seeing some backups as well. You also notice there on Providence Road, that's 16, which is certainly not a highway, as close to the uptown, right? A busy area. There's some backups in that area as well, which maybe tells you they've also closed off some roads in that area as well, because that's how, you know, a lot of traffic would go right past down Moorhead, right in that area near the hospitals. So there maybe are traffic impacts in that area as well, as perhaps they are slowing down some of the traffic in there, because if you look at 277 itself, it's all green, so it's mostly clear right now. So that's the impact, I guess, community-wide that we're seeing is on the traffic situation. As I mentioned earlier, if you know somebody who is stuck in this and they're wondering what is going on, just tell them to be patient. This is an awful situation that we are apparently dealing with here in the city of Charlotte this afternoon. A shooting in East Charlotte that has left numerous officers apparently wounded. Exact extent of those injuries, the exact numbers, still unclear at this point. CMPD calling it an active situation that they are still dealing with. People in that area of Galway Drive are being urged to stay indoors. And if for some reason you'd be heading in that way, stay away right now. They don't need anybody trying to come in right now, as they have a very active situation that they are dealing with. Again, the picture back to our live HD tower cam. Some of that traffic is still getting through, John, but you'll notice the officers are still there on either side. Perhaps if they needed to shut it down again, they could do so quickly.
And again, CMPD hasn't posted anything on the social media here just recently. The latest, they're saying that CMPD SWAT is still on the scene there. They're working through the incident. It is still an active scene, and that's the most important thing to consider. This is still an active scene. We know that there has been gunfire there at the scene. People are being told to stay away, and as Jamie was just saying, folks who live in that area are being told to stay indoors. But again, we don't know specifically exactly what happened here, whether police officers were serving a warrant, whether there's some type of arrest being made. Those details have not yet been released. We just know that there were multiple law enforcement officers on the scene at the time, which would seem to indicate that there was an arrest or some type of warrant being served. But again, we don't know the specifics of that, except that there's been gunfire and numerous law enforcement officers have been struck by this gunfire. Several have been taken to the hospital. They're going to several area hospitals. That could be Atrium, it could be Novant, it could be University City, different places. So we don't know specifically who has gone where right now.
Some of the best trauma care, obviously, in the state is right here in North Carolina. And we know when these kinds of situations happen, right, certain codes are sounded off inside those hospitals, and those emergency teams respond and they get ready and they ramp up. up. So we can presume some of that has probably happened already this afternoon. But again, it looks like traffic at least is slowly starting to move into this area again. But those residual delays that John was just pointing out on the traffic map, that's going to be with us probably for most of this afternoon. So keep that in mind. But again, if you know somebody who is traveling, particularly from South Charlotte, from South Mecklenburg County, up from the state line up towards the Uptown, you're going to want to tell them to find some alternate routes, because it's going to take them a while to try to get through all of this right now. But again, this isn't the main story. The traffic's a nuisance for a lot of people right now, but the real story that we're following here, the real concern that we have in our community this afternoon, is this shooting that has happened in East Charlotte, where numerous law enforcement officers have apparently been injured. The extent, again, we do not know. As John pointed out, it's an unsettling time. I can only imagine spouses and family there wondering what is going on right now. And John, we're getting some new information.
New information coming in right now. This involved a U.S. Marshal was on the scene there, the U.S. Marshals Task Force. That's made up of officers from several different agencies. They were conducting an investigation in that area of the 5000 block of Galway Drive, and they were engaged by active gunfire from a subject. Right now, you can see on our screen right now, it talks about the U.S. Marshals Task Force there, exactly what we are seeing right now. So we do know now that a U.S. Marshal, at least one U.S. Marshal, was involved in this situation here. We do not know specifically which officers were wounded in this situation, whether the U.S. Marshals Service suffered any wounds, or CMPD officers. We don't have an exact figure right now. Again, it's numerous officers have been wounded.
And I think that last sentence on this particular post is important, that the CMPD SWAT team is currently on the scene. So that tells you that this is not over, that this is still ongoing in that community right now, and obviously a major concern, because this person, whoever that person is and whatever they were wanted for, is armed and has already been shooting at people. So that is why they are telling you to avoid this area, for neighbors in that area to shelter in place until this is all over. The SWAT team, they're very good at their job. They know how to handle these situations. They are hopefully going to end this without any more injuries in our community tonight. But as John pointed out, we know the Marshal was involved in this, and then what other responding agencies were assisting as well. We just don't know the numbers. Only time we hear numerous, and numerous is a scary word, because it just doesn't give us any details to how many that might be. And that's the part I know so many of you at home are wondering about, as well as are we. And that's just what we're thinking about. And again, that's why we're seeing the traffic impacts as they've cleared routes to get to the hospitals and such. But it's just not enough known right now. And obviously, John, you know, it's really hard for CMPD to run this active situation while also keeping us up to date.
Exactly. So, of course, the first priority is with the officers who are there out at the scene, the officers who've been wounded. It's very typical that U.S. Marshals go to serve warrants in the area here, and it's very typical that they would have CMPD officers come along with them. I haven't seen anything saying that the VCAT team, the Violent Criminal Apprehension team, has been out there with them, but with the SWAT team out there, that indicates it's a very, very, very serious situation. Now that they are out there, and now that they are reporting that they are still being engaged by active gunfire from a subject, which would indicate one person. We do not know if this person may be barricaded in a home per se, whether this is outdoor, whether in a vehicle, or whatever. So right now, again, the specifics of the situation that happened here on Galway Drive, this appears to it would be at a home, we would believe, because this is a residential area. A lot of homes in that area along that along Galway Drive there. So it's not exactly clear what has happened, except that we just know that multiple officers have been wounded.
We are getting some of our first pictures from the scene. This is courtesy of Steven Switzer, and you can see officers running down the street, and you can see, boy, oh boy, a line of CMPD cruisers there on scene right now. Just a short clip, but it gives you an idea, as John was just pointing out, right? Obviously a residential area, which also raises the question, are there other people inside the home with this person, which obviously adds to the degree of difficulty that CMPD would be dealing with, and the SWAT team as well, because they don't want anybody inside that home to be injured as well. So this is just a short clip that you're seeing from this residential community where all of this has happened over the last hour or so. And if we can go back, actually, as we look at this a bit on a loop, it looked like right as we were cutting to this, it looked like traffic was again being shut down on the interstate briefly. Okay, now I'm looking over my shoulder at a camera. You don't see
it's moving.
It is moving again, but there was a moment there where it looked like they were perhaps going to shut that off. But again, John, just one clip. But this tells you the seriousness, right? Look at the response that you're seeing.
Multiple police cruisers there on the scene. You can see at least a dozen or more officers there at the scene. It's not clear exactly where the specific home or the specific area where this subject is who has been engaged in gunfire with CMPD is located. But again, this is a clip here. You can see the homes there in that area, and you can see multiple police officers and police cruisers as they are addressing this situation. And going back to our traffic maps as well, just a reminder, if you're just joining in right now, traffic on I-77 northbound from uptown all the way south to Tyvola Road is backed up significantly. It appears there may actually be an accident on I-77 northbound near the Highway 16, the Brookshire Freeway exit. So that may be partially responsible for this. We know earlier they had shut down I-277, the John Belk Freeway, as you get off I-77 northbound. That was leading to some backups as well. But right now, that situation along I-77 is a tremendous backup there. So be aware of that if you have to head out onto I-77 anytime soon or head into the uptown area. Independence Boulevard, the inbound lanes were also backed up for. We're not exactly sure what the specific reason may be about that, but you can see there's some other backups there in roads in East Charlotte.
Again, the one video clip that we've gotten from the scene so far from Stephen Switzer, we appreciate him sharing this with us and allowing you to see it as well. But you can see CMPD officers there all over this street right now, a few of them running down the road right now. And again, if you're just turning on the television, the latest information that we have from Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police says that the U.S. Marshals Task Force, which is comprised of officers from multiple agencies, was conducting an investigation in the area of the 5,000 block of Galway Drive when they were engaged by active gunfire from a subject. Multiple law enforcement officers have been struck by that gunfire and are being transported to the hospital. The CMPD SWAT team currently on scene, which again tells us this is ongoing.
And we've got some new video in here. We were showing that video from Steve Switzer. This is new video also from down there on the scene, and you can see once again multiple police cruisers on the scene. There are other vehicles moving through the area there. This is a very short loop right here that we're showing you, but this is apparently along Galway Drive there, and this is let's see, I'm looking for the courtesy super right here.
Charlotte NC.
Charlotte NC is what we're getting the courtesy super from, but you can see here that the active scene, the police cruisers there on the scene. We know that several officers have been injured. We don't have a specific number yet from Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police. And again, as Jamie was saying earlier, I just want to reiterate this too, Jamie. There's a lot of information going out on social media right now.
Be careful.
Some of it, you got to be really careful about it, because CMPD, we are looking to CMPD to give us the official information about what's happening there. And until CMPD confirms that, be very wary of other social media posts that are out there, because some of it may be inaccurate, maybe not deliberately so, but inaccurate simply because people are speculating what may have happened out there.
Be sensitive too to the families, right, of officers in this community who you can only imagine what they're going through right now if they work from the North Tryon Division, you know, for CMPD right now, and they're wondering. They want to know what's going on. And so if we're speculating, that doesn't do them any good. It doesn't do the community any good. We want to get you the information accurately and as quickly as we can, obviously. And that's what we're striving to do here today. But that information is just pretty scant right now, except that all of this began to unfold earlier this afternoon when marshals had arrived on this scene, and they were greeted by gunfire here this afternoon with numerous law enforcement officers being shot. Several have been taken to the hospital. We saw the traffic being closed in and around the hospitals earlier to get those ambulances to the hospital just as quickly as possible. Perhaps now with those lanes being reopened in many places, what they have been able to transport at this time, they have done so already, but we do also see officers still in place on many of these overpasses and intersections that if they need to close them again to get perhaps more wounded to the hospital, they can do so just as quickly as possible. So that's creating certainly the traffic situation all across the Charlotte area right now. So again, just the best to avoid the uptown area, avoid East Charlotte as you can right now. I know that's really a broad thing to say, but it's just the best we can tell you. you at this point because the information just isn't that much known at this point as to what exactly we're dealing with and how long this might go on. But with the SWAT team still there, clearly, John, still an active situation.
Absolutely. I'm just getting word that ATF agents, alcohol, tobacco, and firearm agents are also on the scene out there, and other law enforcement agencies have joined in to this situation here. But right now, we know that U.S. Marshals were on the scene earlier today, and we do not know whether any U.S. Marshal was injured or wounded in this situation here. All we know is several law enforcement officers have been wounded in connection with this. We know CMPD was also out on the scene with the U.S. Marshals as they were addressing some situation out there earlier today, and we're still working to get more information on the specifics of how many people were wounded and what that situation is in regard to the person who may be firing at the officers, whether it's just one. It appears it's just one person. We don't know what their situation is, whether they're barricaded inside a house or in some other area there along Galway Drive. But again, this is a residential area, as you can see from this video from Steve Switzer, who sent this in to us. The multiple police officers that are out there. I don't know how close this would be, Jamie, to the actual scene of where the gunfire is taking place.
Yeah, we're trying to get our crews as close and to the scene and safely as possible, so they can bring us some more live pictures as well. But as you can imagine, that is a challenge right now, as many roads are being impacted in this area even more so. So that is why, again, you're just being told to shelter in place and avoid the area altogether right now. But you can see a few of the officers running down the street, and you can see the response that has swooped down on this neighborhood this afternoon. And we were hearing from people really all over the city. It's like, what's going on? We just hear sirens and police officers flying down the road. Well, we now know where they were headed in this particular case. And obviously, they sadly have to have protocols for this sort of thing and how they were going to handle that. And that's why we saw officers then get to these various intersections around town so that they could provide quick access to the hospitals and such, and get to this area as well. But you can see, again, some of the other video that we are getting in right now, where you can just see a scene that is obviously very much developing. I don't want to call it chaotic. It looks like it's surrounded at this point, at least from this particular clip. We don't know what's actually going on inside that neighborhood right now. We're waiting to get that information from our crews on the scene as well. But the SWAT team is there, as we mentioned, so that tells you it's an active situation. We don't know if there are people inside the house with this particular suspect or subject who they were trying to apparently take into custody for some unknown reason. That's the part we don't know. U.S. Marshals being called in at this point leads you to believe perhaps it was a warrant they were trying to serve. And as CMPD has pointed out, the U.S. Marshals Task Force, which was involved in this, is comprised of officers from multiple agencies. So it might not just have been CMPD. It could have been some others as well. Maybe the state was involved. We just don't know all those kinds of details right now. So we, hate to even speculate on that. But we're waiting to get those kinds of details to what this may have been all about. And right now, we're kind of in wait-and-see mode.
Exactly, wait and see. And again, the situation out there is active, meaning that roadways out in the area there are going to be blocked off. We're talking about Bankston Place. We're talking about Lubbock Place, Aaronbrook Lane, Denson Place. This is in an area close to where this is there. Grafton Drive is in that area there. The Julian Underwood Park is in that area there. Tipperary Place, not far off there. There is a significant backup right now on the plaza. You can get to Galway Drive from the plaza by taking Shannon House Drive there. So there are some traffic situations. If you're anywhere near that area there, you could be impacted simply because traffic is going to be rerouted to other areas here. That lends to more traffic on roadways that normally don't handle much traffic. So if you're going to be in that area there, anywhere around the plaza right now in Northeast Charlotte there, you're going to have some issues because of the backups there. Not sure whether that is exactly related to what's happening here on Galway Drive. But again, there are significant backups in that area. And of course, Galway Drive is blocked off right now because of the police presence out there. But again, this is a residential area. Any of the folks who are in that residential area right now are being advised to stay indoors, do not come outside. And there is active gunfire that has been going on. Now, we're not there at the scene specifically to report how many gunshots may be being fired right now, if that has continued, or exactly what the situation is in regard to this person that police and U.S. Marshals had come out to see earlier.
Just a couple of minutes ago, CMPD did tweet that they want you to avoid the area and expect major roads shut down in the area to expedite victim transport. So that, unfortunately, leads us to believe that they are worried that there are others or could be others who have been wounded in this. Obviously, you begin to think, too, about how you begin to get those who have been wounded out of that situation in which there's open gunfire going on. That is obviously a major challenge that was faced as well, and perhaps why we saw some of the delay here, because it's like, how do you possibly, if someone has been wounded up closer to the home as they were executing whatever they were trying to do there today, whether it was a search warrant or whatever, at this point we don't know, but that would obviously be a high level of difficulty to try to get to those who may have been wounded, to get them out of there, to get them into an ambulance and to the scene. So we don't know if there's perhaps more wounded that are still there, but again, they are just warning you that they still may have to shut down roads yet this afternoon in and around the area, in and around the hospitals, in and around this neighborhood right now. So a developing situation as we've now come up on 3 o'clock here this afternoon. Normally you would be seeing QC at 3. Instead, you are watching unfortunate breaking news coverage here on WBTV. Numerous law enforcement officers have been shot per CMPD in East Charlotte this afternoon as U.S. Marshals Task Force was on scene right now trying to execute some sort of a warrant or something where they're trying to bring someone into custody right now. But a developing situation, John, and I think we do have a reporter on the scene right now.
Our Erica Lunsford is out there working to get more information, and she's joining us now live. And Erica, if you would, tell us exactly where you are and what you're seeing.
Hey, John and Jamie, I'm at the media staging area right now. We're at a Family Dollar parking lot off of the plaza, and just to get here, it was very tense. You could see several roadblocks, a lot of cars, police cars, unmarked cars just flying by with their lights on and flashing. So you can sense the urgency all around this area. Now, we are not near the crime scene at all. We can't see anything. We are about a mile away from it, according to my GPS. But again, you could just see and feel how tense things are out here with several police cars coming through with their lights, driving really, really fast. There's a lot of sense of urgency out here today. And as you mentioned, we do know at this time that multiple law enforcement officers have been struck by gunfire and are being transported to the hospital, and that the CMPD SWAT team is currently on the scene. Again, we are not anywhere near the scene right now, but we are hoping to hear from law enforcement agencies that are out here on the scene right now momentarily as we get more details. We will be out here. They are hoping to speak to us soon and fill us in on more details. Again, we are not at the scene, so right now this area of road is not blocked off. But if you are trying to drive around, I know there's a lot of school buses out here on the road right now, a lot of traffic picking up kids from school. It's very hectic and chaotic, to say the least, trying to drive around anywhere along the plaza or just this area in general. So we will be here working to learn more details. As soon as we get them, we'll keep you guys posted. Back to you.
All right, our Erica Lunsford is there live. Apologies for that. I was trying to interrupt just her briefly because now you are seeing our first live pictures from that neighborhood right now, John, and you can see medic is there, and you can see a number of CMPD cars. I see Charlotte Fire on the scene as well, and some residents in that neighborhood as well. And how close this is to the actual scene is hard for us to tell, but it gives you the sense of the urgency that we are dealing with there this afternoon.
Exactly, and as we've shown you in earlier videos from that scene there are just multiple police. What you can see now is that shot is widened out. It looks like first responders from the Charlotte Fire Department are there, as well as medic is on the scene. We're seeing CMPD cruisers. We do know that ATF agents are out on the scene as well, assisting with Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police. We know U.S. Marshals were in that area a little bit earlier, too. And I don't know, Jamie, were you able to see the cross street there?
I believe it was Slagle. I was trying to read it on our monitor here. It's obviously several blocks away. Obviously, there's even some people from the community who have come out. So whatever perimeter they have set up is obviously outside of all of that, because you can see some community members are in that area right now. But again, last we heard, SWAT was still doing its work, and it looks like perhaps an armored vehicle there as well as moving in the background. If you see that, John, just went right behind the medic ambulance as well. So obviously medic is on scene as well. They haven't really provided us any information. A lot of times they can give us information on the extent of injuries right now, but when it comes to a scene like this, they defer to CMPD. So that's why we are waiting to hear from them. Live pictures here, so you're going to see the camera move around a bit, so just bear with us as that happens here. But this is obviously several blocks away from the real heart of what has happened here today on Galway Drive. And going back now to a live picture here from Interstate 277, where earlier today traffic was being shut down so ambulances could quickly get to the hospitals there in the uptown area of Atrium, Maine. You got Presbyterian, Novant is up there as well. So right now traffic is moving in this area, but CMPD has warned us that if need be, they can shut them down quickly. And I think that's why we're seeing the officers staying there on the shoulder, just in case that they need to close them down to get more ambulances to the hospital.
And if you're just joining us right now, this situation apparently happened sometime after 1 o'clock this afternoon or in the afternoon vicinity right there. And according to Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police, the U.S. Marshals Task Force, which is made up of officers from many different agencies, they were out there conducting an investigation in the area of the 5,000 block of Galway Drive. They were engaged by active gunfire from a subject. So it would appear that this is one person that is involved with this. Multiple law enforcement officers, they haven't said specifically whether U.S. Marshal, CMPD, or whoever, have been struck by gunfire. They've been taken to hospitals. Police have been out on the roadways shutting down traffic in order to allow those ambulances to get there as quickly as possible.
Our chief investigative reporter, Nick Oxner, is joining us now. Looks like, Nick, where are you right now? You where they're going to have a staging area later?
Yeah, Jamie, we are at the staging area just across the parking lot from where you heard our colleague Erica Lunsford brief you. And let's first look up to the sky to the extent that we can. I want to see photojournalist Allison Fields here could get a shot of these helicopters that are circling around the scene. Again, certainly gives you that active sense. But Jamie, while I was working my way over here, traffic all over town, as you can imagine, very dense. It took us about 30 minutes to get what would normally be a 15 or 20-minute drive. But as I was driving over here, I've been working the phones all afternoon, trying to get a better understanding of what exactly went on. So we know from police officially that this was some sort of U.S. Marshal Service out here. We know that that Marshal Service task force was a fugitive task force. They were executing a warrant, as what my multiple sources, law enforcement sources, tell me. And that task force is made up of officers and deputies from around the area. And so what we've been doing here is talking with law enforcement leadership from around the area, checking to see what personnel was involved here. Are there folks okay? Obviously, this is a very fluid situation, a lot of information coming in, and it's our job now that we're here at the staging area, to figure out what is factual and accurate that we can tell you. But we know that task force wasn't just federal agents. We know that it had components from across the viewing area. We know the scene remains very active. And again, we're at the staging area off the plaza, but the actual scene is way over my shoulder here, quite a bit away. As you've seen all afternoon, the roads shut down. I can tell you that firsthand. We had to take 85 and down the plaza to get here. So very fluid situation that's impacting folks here in Charlotte, federal agencies, as well as other local law enforcement agencies who are part of that task force. As soon as we get more information confirmed, we'll update you. For now, though, reporting live here at the CMPD staging area, Nick Oxner, WBTV, on your side.
All right, thanks, Nick. And again, we don't know specifically when this incident first began to take place exactly how many officers were there on the scene at this location on Galway Drive. We're going to have to assume right now, since we haven't been told specifically, that it was at a house that was approached by at least one U.S. Marshal, the U.S. Marshal Fugitive Task Force, CMPD police officers. That is not at all unusual for U.S. Marshals to be serving warrants. It's not unusual for CMPD to accompany U.S. Marshals to a situation like this. We've got a map here. We're going to show you exactly where this is happening. You can see this Galway Drive right now. It is in East Charlotte. It's not far off Shamrock Drive or East Harris Boulevard, not too far from there. It is just south of I-85. But right now, you can see the plaza, that other highlighted road just above Galway Drive there. That is the plaza, which Nick was just talking about. They've had to take multiple different routes to get to the scene where the staging is taking place.
Nick's reporting sort of connects some of the dots, I think, right, yes, John, that we were trying to piece together here is what was the reason for them to be in this neighborhood this afternoon. And we kind of wondered, was it executing of an arrest warrant of some sort? And that's apparently what has happened there today. And I think a lot of officers would probably tell you those are some of the, the scariest kind of situations, the most dangerous types of situations that they can deal with. They try to take every precaution possible to approach a home like that when they think it's most safe to do so. But again, they they don't know what's on the other side of that door oftentimes. And obviously today they were met with gunfire. Numerous officers have been wounded. And again, as we pointed out several times, I wish we could give you more information. We just don't know the extent of those injuries. We don't know how many law enforcement officers have been shot. And as Nick was pointing out as well, this is a task force that is made up of officers from a number of different agencies. So even which agencies they were all involved with, we don't know at this point. And we wish we could tell you more because we know you want more as well. Nick is at that staging area where presumably at some point this afternoon or perhaps later this evening, depending how long this all goes on, we will then be getting some sort of formal update from CMPD about all that has transpired here this afternoon. But obviously these are some of the video clips we've seen from that neighborhood there this afternoon. You see medic, you see the swarm of CMPD cruisers. If you were anywhere around Uptown or between there and East Charlotte this afternoon, you got a sense immediately that something really big was going on because there were officers swarming everywhere. Nick was pointing out the helicopters are in the sky as well, and they are tracking this situation. We've seen officers at various intersections around the community right now. As I peek over my shoulder at Interstate 277, it appears those officers have now completely left that area. So hopefully some of the traffic coming into Uptown now is going to be freed up this afternoon. But that has been one of sort of the side effects of all that has transpired in East Charlotte today. Has just been the traffic mess that we have seen around the area today. So if you know somebody who's stuck in it and they're wondering what's going on, you can tell them obviously it's been a very frightening situation. So this is a very active situation that we're following right now. And another one of our reporters is Dedrick Russell. John?
And Dedrick is at Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Headquarters right now. And Dedrick, are you getting any information from there? Are they releasing any details whatsoever?
Well, John, I just contacted the PIO from CMPD, and that person tells me that that there's no one here available to speak right now, but they did tell me that the chief is at the scene, and if there's anything updates, it will happen at the staging area there. Now, we just seen some officers just coming in and out. Don't know where they were, but we're here just in case if they bring a suspect in or if there's anyone to talk to us about what is happening and how these officers are dealing with the situation that is happening right now. Again, the PIO tells me that there is nothing to report, that they are here right now, but the chief of police is at the scene taking care of the officers and there to answer any questions. But we are going to keep guard here at CMPD headquarters to let you know any movement, any activity that will happen if they bring a suspect in or if there are any officers who are coming in to be relieved to get more briefings and things like that. We will, of course, let you know when we find out something. And the PIO, that I am in contact with the PIO, and the PIO tells me that when there is something to say, that they will reach out to me and let me know what information I need to give to you and the public concerning this terrible incident that's happening right now.
All right, Dedrick Russell live from Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Headquarters. And again, we've gotten some new information from Dedrick in that Police Chief Johnny Jennings is there at the scene on Galway Drive where this is happening, working with the officers there, checking in and seeing exactly what the situation is. So that is the new bit of information we've been able to gather, even though information coming in right now is very slight.
We know the chief always responds when there's officer-involved shooting. Certainly in this case, it is his officers, or at least officers from our area who have been wounded in this here. Again, you see numerous law enforcement officers shot. That's the banner headline there on your screen. An exact number and extent not known at this point. But, John, you know, we've talked to sheriffs, we've talked to police chiefs in other communities who have dealt with the tragic loss of a police officer in the line of duty. And those chiefs, boy, they feel that and they wear that. You know, those are, in some ways, you know, their children, I think, is the way they kind of almost look at it sometimes, these officers, even though some of them could be older than them. But, you know, they feel sort of, you know, a protective, you know, veil around that they want to keep as well. So, you know, that the chief right now is very worried about his officers and other law enforcement officers who may have been wounded in what happened here today.
Absolutely. And in the interest of full disclosure, my son is a Charlotte-Mecklenburg police officer. He is a detective in the South Division. He is not involved in this situation right now. That's not to say that at some point that he will not, but I just want to make sure we're clear clear about that as well. Again, we've been talking about the scene out here and showing this video, but also want to make you aware that officers, these wounded law enforcement officers, have been taken to multiple hospitals, is our understanding. So just be aware there could be some very slow ups traffic-wise at the many hospitals around the Charlotte area. We're talking Novant Presbyterian, we're talking Atrium Health in near the Uptown scene. We could also be talking about Atrium, the hospital out of University City, other hospitals that are nearby. In order not to overwhelm any one particular hospital, they've been taken to multiple different hospitals. But again, we don't know specifically how many law enforcement officers have been shot. We just know it is numerous law enforcement officers who have been shot.
We heard Dedrick Russell just a moment ago talking to the public information officer at CMPD, saying they will release information just as soon as they can. They also made reference that that would be done at the media staging area, which is near where the scene here is happening this afternoon. And we saw Nick Oxner just a few moments ago from that area, and honestly, I didn't see a police officer there at this point. So obviously we are still some time away from getting any sort of update, which makes sense because we also understand the SWAT team is still on scene there trying to negotiate an end to this shootout that has happened here this afternoon in East Charlotte right now. So obviously hard to update us when the scene is still active and we don't know all of the details, and they've been trying to get wounded officers out of that area here this afternoon. You're seeing just a couple of the video clips that we have seen from the area here this afternoon from some viewers. Steven Switzer sending in this clip. It's a short clip, but you can again see, gives you a sense of the presence, gives you a sense of this neighborhood that we are talking about, sort of an old school Charlotte neighborhood in East Charlotte, where you got big lawns, big trees, and some nice homes. And obviously this whole area has been just damaged today by gunfire, and officers in that area and wounded officers, and that's the frightening part. John, you were mentioning, obviously, you know, your son works for the department, and as I mentioned a couple times earlier, I'm thinking about all those spouses and loved ones of officers this afternoon who are just hoping to hear the same news that you got, you know, that your son's okay and that other officers' families can get that news as well. And sadly, we know a few are going to get some news here today that they've at least been wounded. Yeah. And that's the sobering part. There's a lot of conversation about policing in this country, but this is the danger side of it. They don't know what they're facing on every call that they make. Why they were going to this house, we don't know the exact reason. We just know it was the Marshal Task Force, U.S. Marshals Task Force, the fugitive task force that was executing an arrest warrant in this community when those officers were greeted by gunfire. WPTV's chief investigative reporter Nick Oxner is back with us here today. Nick, you learning anything new?
Yeah, Jamie, what we're doing right now is monitoring the CMPD Twitter feed. That's actually the way that they're keeping us informed right now. There are some CMPD and Charlotte Fire PIOs here at the staging area, but as you were talking about there, the scene is very much still active, and that's the latest information that we've gotten in here, is that CMPD saying there is still active gunfire as of just 3 or 4 minutes ago on the scene, and that would explain why we're being kept so far away. Again, we're here at the staging area, we're off the plaza, and we're quite a ways away. We can't see the scene. We can see the helicopter circling overhead at the scene, but we can't actually see anything. And again, that's because CMPD, as of just 3 or 4 minutes ago, still tweeting out that there is active gunfire happening at the scene. So to reset and recap what you guys have been talking about all afternoon, the reason we're here is because a U.S. Marshals Task Force, fugitive task force, was trying to execute a warrant at a house not far away from where we are off the plaza. Over, we'll generally broadly say the Plaza Shamrock area, maybe a little east of that in East Charlotte. That's when we know gunfire was exchanged. We know that there was a number of law enforcement that have come to the scene. CMPD, there was the Marshals Task Force made up of officers and deputies from agencies around the area, not just here in Charlotte. And that's when we know multiple officers have been injured. We don't have those details yet. And we now know from CMPD of just a few minutes ago that that gunfire continues. So very much active, very much ongoing. We're waiting for any cues and information updates here at the media staging area, which is quite a ways away. It doesn't look like that's coming yet because the situation very fluid. In the meantime, we're continuing to work the phones, talk with sources. I'm in touch with multiple people staying apprised of the situation. And so far, we want to be responsible in the information we bring you. We don't want to bring you rumor or speculation. And that's why we're holding back a little bit and waiting for confirmed information from Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police. Jamie, John?
Our Nick Oxner there live on the scene right now, again, giving us a little bit of the color here as we try to understand exactly what has happened here this afternoon. But as Nick pointed out, the important part, this is still an active scene. Very
active scene, and we do know that Police Chief Johnny Jennings is there on the scene along with the Charlotte Mecklenburg police officers. I've been looking too, Jamie, to note whether or not we may have seen any Mecklenburg County sheriff's deputies or anyone from the sheriff's office out there, and they may be. We just don't see that in any of this video here because we believe this video we're looking at right now is not actually at the specific scene where this has taken place, where the gunfire has originated from. We don't know to the extent of, we do know that gunfire has occurred. We don't know how much of that involves the person that the U.S. Marshals apparently were out there to serve the warrant from. We don't know multiple police officers, how many officers may be involved in returning fire to that situation there. There are, you know, guidelines and protocol when it comes to being involved in active gunfire or a situation like this for police officers. And so, again, the details about what's happened exactly at the scene there are still very sketchy right now. We just don't have a lot except to say that multiple law enforcement officers have been shot.
You heard Nick describe it, right? The U.S. Marshal Fugitive Task Force. I'm just looking at the U.S. Marshals website right now, and they do describe what these local fugitive task forces are all about. It says they currently lead 56 of those fugitive task forces right now across the country, the majority of them full-time efforts. However, additional task forces are formed on an ad hoc basis in response to specific cases. Funding for these task forces often granted through initiatives such as high-intensity drug trafficking area, organized crime and drug enforcement task forces, Project Safe Neighborhoods. So which umbrella this was falling under, obviously we don't know, but these task forces fairly common across the country, and there's one here this afternoon that was being executed, an arrest warrant, when all of this happened.
All right, we understand Ron Lee is there at the scene or nearby, and he is joining us now live. So Ron, if you would tell us exactly where you are, what you've seen, what you've heard.
Hey, John, I'm on Galloway and Bankston. We're probably a block, maybe two away from the actual scene. This is as close as we're going to get. CMPD have the entire area shut down at this point, but this is one route that I was able to get in. I actually tried to get in on the other side of Galloway and was told that it was a very active scene. Bullets were still being exchanged, so we had to remove ourselves as quickly as possible, hence the bulletproof vest that I'm wearing right now. I was able to wrap around to the other side, get in as close as you can see. Just behind me, you see dozens and dozens of police cars, fire trucks, emergency crews out there. Everybody is out here on scene hoping for the best, praying for the best for these officers that were involved. I have been talking with some witnesses down here on the scene. While nobody actually saw the shooting, I talked to two specifically. One of them told me he heard at least 100 rounds fired, one after another. As a matter of fact, some of them were being overlaid, so it sounds like they could have been exchanging gunfire, but we do not have that confirmed at this point. Another witness told me it was like World War III down here. He's never seen anything like it. This is just outside of the Devonshire area, a very quiet type of a neighborhood. I'm very well familiar of it. I used to live here several years ago, very family oriented, and this is something that you certainly would not believe that would happen in your own neighborhood. We're going to remain on scene, try to get some more information from CMPD, but the facts right now are few and far between. They're not talking. They're still engaged in the situation, trying to bring this to a peaceful resolution, and we'll just kind of have to see and wait what happens. Pray for the best. In East Charlotte, I'm Ron Lee, WBTV, on your side.
Ron, before you go real quick, I think I noticed a State Highway Patrol car going past you as you were coming on the air. What agencies have you seen? Have there been others besides CMPD?
I've seen just about every agency you can imagine. Highway Patrol, I did see deputy sheriffs. CMPD is out here in force. It seems like there are dozens, if not more, officers out here. In a situation like this, and I've covered scenes like this before, they will flood the streets out here to get everything controlled and contained. Right now, just trying to keep the public safe at bay is the #1 priority. Obviously, they want to bring this to a successful and safe resolution. From this point forward, they don't want anybody else getting hurt, so they're going to bring in negotiators if there is still a barricaded person in that house. So we still have a long way to go, and it's going to affect this area for quite some time. If you have to be in the area, please avoid the area of Galloway specifically. You will not get anywhere near this scene as it is right now. So we'll go ahead and toss it back to you.
right, thanks a lot, Ron. And I think it's important to note, too, Jamie, you look at that vest that Ron is wearing there. CMPD officers are required to wear those vests, but you can see it doesn't cover your entire body. A lot of people might say, well, if they're wearing vests, how could they be wounded? As you can see there, it would be, you know, it protects the
vulnerable places still, right?
Very vulnerable places out there. So that's something to consider right there. And also, as far as firepower is concerned, a regular on-the-street police officer is carrying a Glock 17 or a 19, I'm not sure, 9mm pistol, and or maybe 40 caliber pistol. So, but they do have other weaponry with them depending on who the officers are and what unit they may be with. The SWAT team, of course, armed with multiple different types of weapons that they can use in situations depending on what they are. We do know that for the most part, CMPD does try to resolve these situations without any gunfire, with any violent things taking place, but clearly this was not a situation that allowed that to happen. So there has been gunfire exchange. At what point they are, if they are able to even contact this person who has been firing at them, and some type of communication involved there to be able to try to talk them out of this situation, we don't know. According to CMPD, this involved a subject, which would imply that it's just one person who is contributing to this, who is causing this situation to happen here. We know multiple law enforcement officers were on the scene, though, and Jamie, as you were saying earlier, we don't know if anyone else might be in this home. We believe it is a home where this person is. We don't know whether any other people were in this home at the time when this all began to happen.
Yeah, Ron was kind of alluding to that, right? This is just sort of, like I said, one of those old school Charlotte neighborhoods, right? Lots of families, you got lots of old growth trees and yards, and people just enjoying a beautiful day here in the Carolinas this afternoon when all of this happened. We mentioned that they were executing an arrest warrant. It was the U.S. Marshal Fugitive Task Force that was spearheading this effort. And I mentioned there were 56 of these across the country. And in fact, one of those is based right here in Charlotte. It's the Carolinas Regional Fugitive Task Force. It began operations in January of 2018 under the Presidential Threat Protection Act of 2000. They have partnership agreements with more than 70 federal, state, and local agencies. They have 11 fully operational offices across the Carolinas, and they have been able to successfully apprehend more than 8,900 fugitives since the inception of that several years ago. So again, this is what started this afternoon. An arrest warrant was being executed in this East Charlotte neighborhood when gunfire met with those officers, and numerous have been wounded. Again, the exact number and the extent of those injuries still not known. Earlier this afternoon, if you're just getting home, we saw a number of the roads in and around the hospitals, access roads to those hospitals in the uptown area were being closed off so ambulances could get there quickly. You can see one medic in the ambulance there in the clip that you're watching right there on your screen right now. So still a developing situation. The SWAT team